Can I tell you guys something? If you're not making sheet pan meals, you're spending too much time in the kitchen. They are so easy. They come together so quickly. Tonight we are going to have a salmon sheet pan dinner. And here's the great thing about this one. Not only is it on a sheet pan, not only are we using up that extra salad dressing that sometimes you have no idea what to do with, this is also only 5 ingredients. It comes together so quickly, so easy to make this. What's the best part about sheet pan dinners? You guys say it with me, you have less dishes to wash, okay? Because you're gonna cover that sheet pan with foil or parchment paper or something that's gonna keep it clean, and then you barely have to rinse it off. As you can see, I'm starting with some red potatoes, and I'm just dicing these into maybe a little bigger than bite-sized pieces. You can make them whatever size you would like. You do wanna make sure that they're small enough that they're not gonna take a really long time to cook, because one of the things about sheet pan dinners is that you want everything to cook around the same time. Now for this one, I'm actually gonna be cooking the potatoes first for a little bit before I add the salmon and the green beans onto that sheet, just to make sure we don't overcook the salmon. That's a really big deal. Now, if you're doing something like chicken, or if you're doing maybe a meatloaf, something really other than a fish that doesn't overcook really quickly, you're all right putting everything on the sheet pan at the exact same time. All right, so what I would say is just cut however many you feel like you need, depending on the size of your family. Now, whenever I make sheet pan dinners, I usually opt to use my larger sheet pan. So I have that one here. I'm gonna take all of the potatoes and just put them right on the sheet pan. I don't know what has been happening lately, but every time I get potatoes, it has not looked amazing. This is ingredient number 1. I have some Copycat Olive Garden dressing here, and I am going to drizzle just a little bit onto the potatoes. Now, obviously, you can just buy the Olive Garden dressing. You do not have to make it, but I've been making it because we have all the ingredients always on hand to make it, and it is so easy, so easy. And so that I don't have to dirty a bowl to toss all these in, we're just gonna do this. You can toss them obviously with a spatula or tongs or something like that, but look how easy that was. We are preheating our oven to 400 degrees. I'm gonna let these cook for about 15 minutes or so. Then we're gonna add other ingredients onto this and cook again. So we have a little bit of a pre-cook on the potatoes here, which take the longest. Now I'm gonna add the green beans. All right, now that this is hot, I will switch to tongs. Let's add a little bit more of that dressing and mix them around. It's just gonna add good flavor. You can also add salt and pepper if you want. Honestly, I mean, you can add whatever you want. It can just be spices. It doesn't have to be leftover dressing. It's just convenient that we have leftover dressing, so I'm using it. Okay, so let's put this back in maybe like 5 minutes or so, just to get those green beans started. And then we're gonna add the salmon onto the center of the sheet. But really, the green beans won't take that long at all. These have been in for about 5 or so minutes. We're actually gonna change the oven to broil. I'm gonna broil on low, but I'm gonna change that over now. And let's make a pocket here in the center that the salmon can go in. I bought this salmon, and I definitely thought that it had 4 in the pack. Clearly does not. But my daughter is going to a birthday party tonight, and I'm pretty sure she's eating there. I'm checking to make sure though. The salmon is our 4th ingredient. We are going to top with some of the dressing. You can add salt and pepper if you would like to. So if you're using the store-bought version, I definitely think it has more sodium than the homemade version that I made, so you may not need to add salt and pepper. Since mine is homemade, I'm gonna add this Kevin's seasoning. So this is our 5th ingredient. Salt and pepper would be another thing that you could add, but good to go. Put this in for about 10 more minutes. All right, I just pulled this. We do wanna check it. I think it's actually gonna be perfect. Oh yeah, this is perfect. Nice. It's nice and flaky. I just tasted this and realized that I wasn't recording the whole time. It's really good. I prefer to take the skin off. This is skin on salmon. Obviously you can buy it without the skin, but whatever your preference is. The flavors are really good. So easy to make. Such a pretty meal with all the different colors, great ingredients. In my opinion, the green beans are cooked to perfection. I like them to just still be a little bit crunchy, ever so slightly, not a lot. Like I don't want them to be raw, but I like a little bit of crunch. So if you don't like a little bit of crunch, just cook them a little longer before you put that salmon on. So good, so easy to make. Love this one. We are going to make these meatballs that have this lemony orzo that go with it. Delicious. I'm actually gonna be using ground chicken. You can use ground turkey, ground beef, ground whatever it is that you enjoy. We're gonna use chicken because that's what I had available. And tonight, actually, my husband is not here. So I'm going a little less on the peppers and stuff just because we're not gonna need quite as much. So adjust to whatever it is that you feel like you'll need. Let's just slice these up. This is another example of the style of dinner that is just kind of our preference. The type of flavors, absolutely, that we enjoy, but also we love having the type of dinner like this where there's toppings that you can kind of just choose from. So maybe not everybody in your household likes Kalamata olives, then they can leave those out, but the people that enjoy them can use them. So I'm just gonna slice these. Also, while I do that, my oven is currently preheated to 400 degrees, and I've got a pot over on the stove that has some water in it. I'm starting to get that to boiling so that we'll be able to cook up that orzo. I'm gonna give these just a little bit of a drizzle with oil. Oh, I forgot, I always forget I have my sprayer. And let's put some salt on these and just do one of these numbers, okay? Really, really simple here. And I'm gonna lay these just all over my dish. Okay, set this to the side because we need to make up our meatball mixture. I have 1 pound of ground chicken here, and this is about a ½ cup of breadcrumbs, panko, whatever your preference is. Add all of those. Is that an orzo in there? Yup. Add in about a ½ teaspoon or so of, maybe a little more. It's probably like a teaspoon of minced garlic. 1 egg, already prepped and ready to go. A decent amount of oregano. So at least a teaspoon, maybe more, just depending on the flavors that you really enjoy. But I'm gonna add a good amount, probably closer to 2 teaspoons, but we really like oregano, especially in these kind of like Mediterranean, lemony type of flavors. Love it. Let's add a touch of salt. And I'm gonna be adding some pepper. Not too much. I'm gonna be using my herb scissors to cut up some parsley. So this is fresh parsley. That is definitely my recommendation for this, if you're able to access fresh parsley. Also, let me show you guys a little tip. If you purchase fresh parsley, or maybe you grow some in your garden, that's what I'm actually working on, fresh parsley in my garden right now, because we use it a lot. I keep mine in the refrigerator just like this. So you just take it, add a little bit of water into your cup, chill it just like this in the refrigerator, and then every few days or so I change out the water, and they stay fresh for so long. Obviously, if you're growing parsley or mint or whatever the herb is, if you're growing it, it's probably better to just leave it on the plant. But if you've already cut it, this is a great way to just store it right in the fridge like this. Okay, let's start to mix this together. I'm gonna take my 1½ tablespoon scoop here, and you can obviously roll these around and form them so that they look really perfect. But if you just wanna use your scoop and just scoop them straight onto the pan, you don't even have to do the extra work and effort, unless of course you want them to look beautiful and perfect. Also, I don't think I've shared them with you. I'll try and put them on the screen if I can find them. We bought some pre-made meatballs the other day at Sam's Club because I was looking for a really quick lunch option. So a lot of times I prep our lunches ahead of time. I'll make them for a couple of days at a time, and then that way we can just pull them out of the fridge and reheat. And that's a very common thing in our house, just because I scrounge for lunches, you guys. So if I don't have something made, then I'm just raiding the pantry to try and find something. So I found these pre-made meatballs at Sam's Club, and they are so delicious. But sometimes you just come across a fantastic product, and for sure, that was one of them. Also, I'm a big fan of meatballs. I actually really enjoy them. And I also like the fact that if you make too many, you can freeze them. You can have them for lunch. They usually reheat really well. I like them a lot. So this one's kind of a sheet pan meal. We're just adding some more stuff to it. These are gonna go in that 400-degree preheated oven. I'm gonna check them at around 17 to 18 minutes. I'm thinking they're gonna take 20 to 22, but we'll check them just based on their size. Obviously, all that time depends on the size of the meatballs that you make. So let's get these in there. My apologies, I thought I was recording and I was not. I added 1 1/3 cup of orzo here into this water, and we're gonna let this cook just until it's al dente. It usually takes under 10 minutes, but we'll watch it just to kind of see how it is. I also had salt in that water too. While the meatballs are cooking, I need to set a timer. Okay, timer's on. While the meatballs are cooking and the orzo is cooking, I'm gonna make up the feta kind of drizzle that we're using. I have about a 1/2 cup of Greek yogurt here. This is plain, it's non-fat. You can use full fat, it doesn't matter, it's totally fine. And I'm gonna add some feta cheese to this. So I like a lot of feta in ours, but let's say about a 1/2 cup. Let's just start to mix that. Probably could have used a little bit bigger of a bowl. Unfortunately though, this is the this is the most amount that we'll be adding. Add about a tablespoon of oil. This is avocado oil. Use whatever your preference is on that. And I like to stir this ingredient by ingredient, just making sure that consistency stays where I want it, or because then I can see, okay, do I need to add more oil? Should I add more vinegar? What do I need to add to this to kind of get it to be where I want it to be? I'm gonna add a touch of lemon juice. Let's do about 2 teaspoons. I also really like to add red wine vinegar. This is not in some of the recipes that I've seen for this kind of thing, but I think that red wine vinegar just makes this really good. So 1.5 teaspoons-ish. And this is gonna help to kind of thin it out a bit, because the thinner you make it, the easier it is to drizzle. So obviously you can just like plop a spoonful on the top of your bowl and that's totally fine. If you want to make it a drizzle, then you're gonna wanna thin it out a little bit. And you can do that with water too. I'm adding garlic powder. Feel free to use minced garlic, about a 1/2 teaspoon-ish or so. And then actually, let's just go ahead and add our oregano. Love oregano. I'm gonna add at least a teaspoon. And then I really like to add dill to this, even though you don't need it. There's just something about that lemony, Greek-ish flavors. I just feel like dill takes it next level. We definitely need some salt, so add a pinch of that. And I'm gonna be adding pepper. Oh, love the smell of that dill. See what our consistency looks like. It's definitely not at a drizzling consistency, but again, if you want it to be thinner, you can add a little bit of water and it's totally fine. Okay, the orzo is done. Let's drain that. And then we're gonna go back into the pot. Okay, so this is kind of like a lemony orzo. I'm gonna add a touch of butter. That's even less than a tablespoon. You can add more though. Feel free to add whatever you need. And then I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons, maybe not even, maybe more like 1.5 tablespoons of lemon juice. Mix that together and we have our nice lemon orzo. If you have a fresh lemon, add in some of the, the peel, the rind, you know, when you, oh my goodness, the zest in here, and that's gonna even make it more lemony. I'm gonna add some of the dressing that we made to the center. Obviously, like I said, feel free to thin that out and then you can add that. Let's add some meatballs. I didn't even count how many I made, but I'm thinking like 4 to 5 per bowl is a good amount. And then some peppers. And then I love Kalamata olives.
Just a few for me.
Gotta have some of those. Add a little bit more of this because it's pretty, and top that off with some more parsley, just for some additional bright green. Little insider tip, in my house here, whenever we just don't know what we're gonna have for dinner, I often opt for bowls. Any type of bowl like this where you can throw in the ingredients that you love. It's easy to make. Everybody can pick what they love out of it. I just love a meal like this. Fantastic flavor. You get some of that lemon, just a little bit. Like I said, add a little bit of zest and it's gonna give more of a pop of lemon, but the meatballs are so well flavored. So, so good. And this right here, that takes it over the top. You definitely don't wanna make this without that sauce because it is delicious. But the meatballs are cooked perfectly. Just for reference, these are 1.5 tablespoon meatballs. I cooked them for 21 minutes, okay? So just for reference, they're perfectly cooked. If you're not a fan of orzo, you can make this with rice too, or you can make it in a salad and just put the meatballs and everything on top of a salad. This is one of those recipes that we have made time and time again. We change it up depending on what's available in the refrigerator and in the pantry. We'll just add whatever kind of stuff we have available. So don't feel like just because you don't have every single thing that I add into this recipe that you can't make it, because you absolutely can. We are gonna start this by making the little marinade that the chicken goes in, and then the chicken will go in it, but we're also gonna use the marinade for the rest of the dish. But that way it can be sitting in it for about 15 minutes or so while I prep everything else. Into this bowl, I am adding about a fourth cup to a half cup of olive oil. Now for us, we're going a little lighter on the olive oil, more toward the fourth cup, because I'm using chicken thighs. And so for me, I'm just gonna cut down on that. You can obviously use chicken breasts for this recipe, but it is gonna bake in the oven. And I've said it here before, we prefer, if we're gonna bake chicken, that we do thighs. They just come out better in my opinion. But if you're looking for a leaner option, feel free to go with the chicken breasts. Let's add in about 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. You can use a fresh lemon, but I really need mine for tomorrow, so we're just gonna use this jar. We need about 3 to 4 cloves of minced garlic. Let's add some salt. I'm gonna add about a teaspoon of salt. You can go less on this if you want, but it is a marinade. I wanna make sure there's really good flavor here. About 2 teaspoons of oregano. A teaspoon of thyme, a teaspoon of Dijon mustard. Now, let me tell you, if you are not using Dijon mustard in your marinades, you're missing out. There's great flavor in this. It is not just a sandwich condiment. It's really, really great for dressings and marinades. You can also add pepper to this if you want. We are going to just mix everything together here, and then I'm gonna be adding in my chicken thighs. Now, you guys know I like to cut off the fat from my chicken thighs a little bit. Obviously, I know it's still a more fatty protein, but I do like to cut some of it off, and then we're gonna add it into that. All right, so we've got all of our chicken in here. We just kind of move it around a bit to make sure that we're gonna get that marinade over all of that chicken. Oh my goodness, it is gonna be so good. If you guys have been here for a while, you've seen this very similar marinade be used on steak bites before when we make Greek bowls. It's so good. I mean, this is just the marinade. We love Greek flavors. We love Mediterranean flavors. This is like our go-to. All right, friends, I've got some washed potatoes here. I'm going to be dicing these, and I'm actually going to dice them significantly smaller than I probably would on any other sheet pan. And that's because sometimes when we do sheet pan, I will actually cook the potatoes first, then add the protein because the potatoes can take longer. But the smaller you dice them, the shorter the cooking time. And I'd like to cook it all together tonight on the same pan. So that's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna make maybe 1/2 inch diced pieces. So they're just gonna be smaller than normal. You don't have to use potatoes. Another great option for this sheet pan would be zucchini. Zucchini and squash would be really good on here. We've done broccoli with this one before. You can do green beans, you could do Brussels sprouts. We just love root vegetables. We are a potato loving family. Just follow the same basic concept. You know, you can use that marinade for plenty of things. Now this next ingredient might come as a little surprise, but I can use onions in recipes like this, even though my husband doesn't like them, because I can just use a little bit and it's not mixed in, right? So he can pick through it and easily just not eat what he doesn't want to eat. I just add a little bit. I just think that having a little bit of onion on here, first, it looks really pretty. Second of all, I love the flavor, so I like to have it in there. And then I also like to add a little bit of green. So we've got our bell pepper. Now again, I've done this plenty of times without bell pepper because we didn't have it available. It wasn't in our fridge, so obviously I wasn't gonna use it, but it's available this time, so it's convenient to just go ahead and throw it on there, making sure it doesn't just go to waste in the pantry, or in the refrigerator, I should say. And let's add a little bit of red pepper as well. Same process. All right, so that chicken has been marinating for a few minutes now. I'm gonna take it and just lay it on our parchment lined baking sheet. You can use parchment, you can use foil if you'd like. I mean, foil, you can wrap it around and it's gonna protect your baking sheet. You won't have to wash it quite as heavily, but that's what we have parchment paper right now, so that's what we're going with. So we're just gonna lay them out wherever you want, but save that, okay? Now we just start to take all of our other ingredients and go all around. Okay. So now we just take that marinade that we have left over and just kind of drizzle all around. And then I just give it a light toss just to try and get that marinade kind of spread out a little bit. Now I'm gonna sprinkle with a little bit of extra oregano and a little bit more salt. Just wanna make sure all the vegetables have good flavor. The next thing I add is some Kalamata olives. These are sliced, you can use whole, it's up to you. Just kind of toss them all around. Y'all, tell me this looks delicious. You know it does. I was gonna add tomatoes, but I don't even know where they'll go. See if we can add a couple here. I don't know if I've ever told you guys, but my son eats these right here, these gourmet Medley tomatoes. We go through a pack a week easily because he eats them like a snack. We'll walk by and grab a handful, and that is a snack for him. He loves them. The last thing I like to do is top with a little bit of feta cheese. Totally optional. I know a lot of you don't like feta cheese, and that's okay. It's okay. You just want to top with a little bit of feta if that's your thing, if you like feta. But y'all, come on. I mean, look at how beautiful and how good and all these amazing flavors. Again, if you want to cut down on the fat content, then don't add the feta cheese. It's a totally optional ingredient, but I mean, it looks delicious. We're gonna bake this at 425 degrees. It usually takes around 30 to 35 minutes. I always just watch it and make sure that stuff doesn't overcook though. It also obviously depends. If you have bone-in thighs, those are gonna take a little bit longer to cook. These are boneless, skinless, so they don't take quite as long to cook. So 425 degrees. This looks so delicious. I already know we're gonna love these flavors because they're just flavors that we love. Chicken is great. Just so you know, I ended up cooking it about 37 minutes. Again, ours is boneless and skinless. So just depending on what type of chicken thighs you're using, it could make a difference. Let's try some of the vegetables. They're perfect. You have that marinade on there that we added to the chicken. It adds great flavor to those vegetables. So every single bite is bursting with that Greek Mediterranean flavor that at least we definitely love. Our verse today comes from Romans 8:28. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Check out the video I have listed right here in the middle of the screen. This one is going to encourage you and inspire you in the kitchen. I love the recipes here. Don't miss it. If you're new here, I would love if you would subscribe and stick around, and I hope you have a great week.